given you such a punt and thought I couldn't imagine a better person to talk to at this time about how to plummet the depths of our creative minds as an entrepreneur. I mean, you are one of the leading authorities when it comes to that. I mean, your video that you did that in 2016 that had 30 million hits on 90 seconds in the lifetime of a, what was it, 90 seconds lifetime
life of an entrepreneur in 90 seconds.
90 seconds. Phenomenal, 30 million hits, but it's transformed lives. And you've taken adversity and turned adversity into something that is something very powerful. You really understand entrepreneurship. So I couldn't think of a better person to talk to. So thank you for joining me today. Cheers. Well, this is Coffee with Caroline.
This is In and Out with Ben David. So this is In and Out for me, but
it's
good to be on.
It's so good to be on. And we just it was last year actually, it wasn't recently, I did that interview with you, and it was so powerful. I've been interviewed by a lot of people, but boy, was your interview one of my favorite, because you made me think about my own work. You made me think so critically and dig so deeply inside myself. And that's what I love about you. You really dig into people's heads and you make us question everything, and that is phenomenal. So tell my people about who you are, and a lot of people obviously know you, and just how can you help us in this crazy time where COVID and racism and awareness and a new global thinking has changed the way that we function?
Yeah, so my background, born and raised in Iran, lived there for 10 years. You know, in Iran, if you are Christian, you are taught not to tell people what you are. Your parents will tell you, if anybody ever asks you if you're a Christian, don't tell them. So in Iran, we were Armenian Assyrian family, and my parents are Christian. So eventually we escaped Iran, went to Germany at a refugee camp, lived there for 2 years. And I came out here, lived here 6 years, and I joined the Army, went to the 101st Airborne, got out. I got into business, specifically in financial services with Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, became a broker day before 9/11, and then went to Transamerica for 7.5 years. And then after that, I started my own company, October of 2009, with 66 agents. And now we have over 15,000 agents nationwide. And we're in 49 different states. I'm 130 offices. We're currently at work. We got a bunch of people working in the back. This is just support one side of the office. And then, you know, Valuetainment, that grew to the channel that it is today with a few million subs. You know, I will tell you this. For me, I was given a talk for a commencement speech for this school, and they asked me to give them a message. And they said, so, you know, what do you think about what's going on right now, and how should we process this? I said, look, if high school is the biggest high of your life, in a way you failed life, because high school cannot be the biggest high of your life. High school is a phase of your life, and you grow. It's okay to reminisce. It's okay to go back. It's okay to go back and say, you know what, here's what I did in high school. I enjoyed this. We did this. I played sports. My best friends were there. We used to be part of this group. We used to be part of that group. We used to go to parties. We used to go to dances. I used to date this girl. I used to date that guy. It's fine. But to me, almost everything that helped me become who I am today, it was a byproduct of a tough time. I don't know why. Everything that helped me become who I am today is a byproduct of tough times. We have agents all over the country that we bring on board, and we recruit and we build. And I can tell you the top producers have either had a sports background, they were either in military, or they were in some kind of an environment where there was a lot of pressure and they could handle the pressure, and then they eventually use it in business to do well for themselves. So there's almost a requirement to have some experience of going through tough times. Now, during times like this, you're going to have 3 different types of people. Just like any time, it's going to produce the 3 different types of people. Those that will be the pace setters on how they come out of COVID and how they come out setting an example for everybody else. Then you'll have the responders. Responders will be those who wait for the pace setters to make the move, and then they'll respond to what the pace setter does. And then you'll have the late bloomers. Unfortunately, the late bloomers will take a hit like they always do in every single thing that happens in life. The responders are going to be fine, and the pace setters are either going to be criticized or they're going to be seen as heroes. It's a lot of risk on being a pace setter. So you got to make a decision which one you're going to be. One of the things I wouldn't be is I wouldn't be coming out the gate slow if I'm out there. I'd be figuring out a way how to position myself in the marketplace today.
Mm, that's brilliant. That is very powerful. You can be one of three, and what you're advising is get ahead. So how do you do it? What would you give some? Because you've interviewed some of the most amazing people, and as you've said collectively, and this is not something this is fairly common knowledge. If people are going to really make a change, they've come through adversity. And I know from my brain scientific research as well, it changes how your brain functions. It puts you on a different level of intelligence, and intelligence is something that we grow ourselves. So that's not something that's fixed. It's something that we can keep growing, and that deep, intense, critical thinking and that entrepreneurial spirit that drives you forward, taking that adversity energy and channeling in the right direction. That's what I'm hearing you say. How do you do that? Because your background, as you've just outlined very quickly, and we've got a podcast coming up soon where we're going to really dive into that in more depth. And this is a limited time, but what can you tell people how can you be the pace setter or the responder versus the person who like hangs around and waits?
I think the one question, you know, I have a book coming out. I don't even know if I have a copy next to it. To promote a book, you probably should have a copy next to it. Don't have it next to me. Yeah. But I have a book coming out called Your Next 5 Moves. And the first thing that I talk about with anybody I work with is by far the most important question I answered. Your Next 5 Moves is coming out with Simon & Schuster. It's coming out August 18th. If a person wants to get a chapter of it, if they go to yournext5moves.com, and you'll see how to get a chapter of it to read it. But the most important question I think people have to answer, Doc, is, you know, you have to make a decision in the marketplace on who you want to be. And here's what I mean by who you want to be. I've seen so many people frustrated, upset. You know, they'll say something like, well, look at the other person, but they're doing better than me. But look at the other person, they're doing better than me. But look at that person right there. And look at this person right here. And it creates bitterness, envy. And I'll always bring them back and I'll say, listen, why don't you stop looking at everybody and ask yourself who you want to be in your family, who you want to be in the community, who you want to be in the world. Well, what do you mean by that? You would be amazed how many people don't have the answer to the question of who you want to be. So let me unpack that a little bit. What do you mean by who do you want to be? Okay. I once had a guy who I hired. He became the president of my company, one of the most important hires I ever made in the company. We're friends till today. We've been friends for 12 years. And he told me something powerful. I call him Wikipedia because you can ask him anything. He has an answer for it. His dad was a rocket scientist. He sold the company for $680 million, jammed that to EA Sports. And he was the number 7 guy in that company. He still got a massive multi-7-figure check. Then he went and was part of Sony. Then he started his own few companies. He failed the companies he started. The most money he ever made was as number 7 person. And he sat me and I says, Pat, I got to tell you this. I said, what's that? He says, I'm not a good number 1. I said, where are you going with this? He says, I'm a very good number 2, 3, 4, 5, but I'm not a good number 1. I said, how do you say that? Like, that doesn't hurt your ego? He says, no, I just know I'm not a good number 1. You realize how hard that is for a person to say that? But he realized, I make my money as a 5. I succeed as a 6. I don't succeed as a 1. There's this idea where everybody wants to be, well, oh my gosh, look at Michael Jordan, you know, he's the number 1. Scottie Pippen didn't do well as a number 1. He did good as a number 2. You got certain people that want to become presidents. They don't make good presidents. You know, like Ulysses S. Grant was a terrible president. He didn't like being a president. He was an incredible general. You know, so but you got certain presidents that if you put them in military, they would make terrible generals, but they make good presidents. It's a very weird dynamic. You know, do you want to be an operations person? Do you want to be a CEO? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to be an intrapreneur? Do you want to be a solopreneur? How big do you want to build it? Do you want to be the person in the family that everybody relies on and they go to for counsel, advice? You're the example. People want to be like you. Where you're the example, that comes with a lot of pressure. Do you really want that pressure of being a role model? Maybe you don't. Maybe you just kind of want to be on the sidelines and no one's bothering you and you just live a very calm life and you don't want to be judged and you don't want to get in the ring because you're going to get a black eye. What if you lose? And if you lose, people are going to laugh at you. It's humiliating. I don't want that kind of pressure. And then that's one question. So now here's the second part of that question for people to start in a time like this. The second part of that question is, say you just said who you want to be. How much of what you said on who you want to be has to do with you minimizing exposure versus wanting to seek your capacity? Because that's a whole different conversation now. For example, so somebody says, well, you know, I really don't want all that pressure. I just want to be a regular person. Okay, fair. Say you want to do that. Let's just say you're 74 years old and you chose to play a safe life. Are you going to be okay being 74 years old, looking back saying, I wish I would have done more because I'm so disappointed with my life? Because that's also not the right decision to make. So you can also take the safe life, because if you take the safe life, then you're going to live with regrets later on. So you got to balance those two out to ask yourself, who do you want to be? And then at the same time, are you okay if you live a life never reaching your full potential? If the answer is yes, then forget about it. Just go do whatever you want to do and live a simple life. But if there's a part of you that you're sitting on and saying, you know what? I don't know, man. I just, these are weird times. I've had friends that I lost, and, all the 1 minute everybody's telling you to stay home. The next minute, the politicians are telling you to go protest. I'm confused. Do they even know what? Then 1 minute, the doctors are saying that you should put a mask on. Next minute, they're saying masks don't work. Next minute is people are getting arrested. I don't know what's going on. This is so confusing. I see myself as a Democrat, but then I relate to Republicans. I see myself as a Republican, but I relate to Democrats. I'm confused. I don't even know what I am today politically. I thought I liked this guy. I don't like this guy. I thought I didn't like this guy. Now I like this guy. This is confusing. This is by far, Caroline, by far the best time for somebody to sit down and ask themselves the important questions that they haven't asked for a while. And that is getting to study the most important product, which is yourself. Because once you do that, then it's about your next 5, 10, 15 moves. Once you know who you want to be, coming up with the next 5, 10, 15 moves is not going to be hard. But right now, the most important pivotal thing I'd be doing is, who do you want to be in your family? Who do you want to be in the marketplace? How you want to be compensated? How big of a life do you want to live? Based on that, go solve for X and come up with your next 10, 15 steps to go become that person that you want to be. That's what I'd be doing if I'm them.
Oh, that's outstanding. It's brilliant. And we positioned for the first time in history. I interviewed an epidemiologist recently, and I keep quoting him. He said that for the first time in history, all of humanity are facing the same enemy. So globally, we're facing the same enemy, which is this unknown COVID. And overnight, the world changed. And overnight, things changed. And overnight, we collectively started being forced to think differently about what we've been doing for the last 30 years and how we got here. And yes, it's been done in very different ways, but it has forced us to, as you say, think. We are in an ideal position now to go back to our most core basic root, which is to think very deeply about the questions that you've said. For the last 30 years with this modern era, we've been so busy being busy that we've forgotten all about thinking. And there's so much scientific research showing that. And we're seeing the impact in the brain. We even see when we look at normative databases, how they've changed in the last 20 years because people have changed. They don't think deeply enough anymore. It's changed. It's had a negative impact, and this is almost like a bringing to our knees moment where we can think deeply, and we've got to use this energy so effectively. So that question that you pose is, what do you want? What do you want for yourself? Brilliant, because it's basic stuff. It starts with identity. From once you know who you are, you can then start stepping out into making those changes, whatever they look like. And I also love what you said about people are spending so much time saying, look what they've got, and being jealous and envious, which causes brain damage, just by the way. And then you're wasting that energy, which is limited in us, on toxic stuff, instead of turning that into, wow, that's amazing, how phenomenal, which boosts your energy in your brain and now boosts your creativity. And now you can, instead of being jealous, you can actually go and say, okay, so what can I do? I'm hearing you say that, and I'm hearing you say channel that energy in the right direction. Because on top of this COVID, we've now got this racism issue, which is now very much in our awareness. And it's so good because, David, some of the research I did over the years was looking at changes in organizations, whether it's a school, a church, a company, an individual, and there's a general trend. People want to change, and there's like a little blip, people change, and then they kind of go back. And then unless they, and I'm saying this to relate to what you were saying, that you can be one of those people that says, well, I want to change, but I don't know if I want to put in the effort. I want to, and then you just kind of stay flat. And at 74, you look back and, hey, my life was a bunch of blips with flat lines. But when you're deliberate and intentional, this is what I showed in my research, you can change as an individual and as an organization and as a country and as a society. You can change 35 to 75% immediately by just changing how your mindset changes, just being deliberate and intentional. And I think this is what, this is what I know you have done as an individual with adverse circumstances. So how do you kind of translate that kind of into practical terms?
Yeah, again, I think we spend way too much time with things we have zero control over, and it's so draining. I like to cover the news. I like to watch the news, but the last couple of weeks, I just don't even want to watch it. I read it. I don't even want to watch it. I read the news. I don't watch the news right now because it's too much. It's too much of stuff that you have zero control of, and you put too much energy into that. Look, you start off in the morning. When you're in the morning, you have a cup of energy, right? And your energy is got only this much energy. The more you allow other things to suck that energy, then by middle of the day, the world's getting the worst of your energy, whatever's left, versus I'm going to conserve my energy and I'm going to give the best of my energy to the areas that are going to give my highest return. And unfortunately, that's not what a lot of people are doing today. You got to, business wise, let me talk a little bit about dreams. So here's a guy, he gets out of high school. Parents get a divorce twice. My sister's 2 years old. My parents get a divorce the first time. Then they come back and everybody pressures them because in Iran, you're not supposed to get divorced because it's not a good thing. They get remarried. And with the idea of let us have a second kid, hopefully the second kid's going to make the marriage work. I'm born. Okay. After I'm born, a few years later, they get a divorce. My parents get a divorce twice in 20 years. Okay. So we come to the States. I'm a regular kid going to high school, 1.8 GPA. I'm told by the recruiter and my counselor, look, you're not, this regular life is not worth, it's not something you can compete in. You're a big guy. You're 6'4", 6'5". You have muscles, join the Army. So I go into the Army. Army's going to give you great benefits. Go into that life. You get college. You get all this other stuff. You get a nice GI Bill. So I go into the Army. I listen to them. No problem. They said, I'm not the smartest guy. I don't have the biggest grade. Army's for me. I went there, right? Then eventually got to a point where I'm like sitting there questioning everything. I'm like, wait a minute, why not? Why? Well, I remember I was a kid. I asked my mom an interesting question. This is going to be a little bit crazy for some of you guys when I say this to you because, you may take it in a different way. I said, Mom, what are we? In school, they're talking about Democrats and Republicans. What are we, Mom? And my mom said, oh, we're Democrats because Democrats are for the poor and Republicans are for the rich. I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'd love to be a Republican one day.
Love it.
I don't know if that makes sense. I have no clue what it is to be a Democrat and a Republican.
You're a little kid, yeah.
I'm a little kid. I'm like, I'd love to be rich one day. So what I'm trying to say is I'd love to have money one day. I'm not trying to say I'd love to be a Republican one day and all these other things that come with it. It's very simple. I'd like to have some money one day. Why? Here's what I'd like to have some money one day. There is nothing more annoying than family members and relatives around you, or classmates around you, kind of looking down at you like, look at, oh, poor Patrick, it comes from a broken family. Don't feel sorry for me. I don't want you to feel bad for me. And people would come and give us gifts on Thanksgiving and like that kind of stuff. I never liked it. I don't want gifts of feel sorry. Gifts, give me a gift because you want to give me a gift. Don't give me a gift because you feel sorry for my family. I don't want any feeling sorry type of stuff, because the more and more you accept that, psychologically, you believe you are sorry. You accept that. I'm not accepting that. You making that judgment yourself. I'm not buying that. So this is what I would say to the people that are watching this. 3 times for me, massive crisis has happened the last 20 years. So watch this. Each time, it's made me a fortune. First one was, when 9/11 took place. When 9/11 happened, I got started into the financial industry day before 9/11, okay? 9/10 is a Monday. I'm at Morgan Stanley Glendale. Everything is fire. I'm about to go to New York World Trade Center because that's where Morgan Stanley's headquarters was. 3,600 employees worked at the World Trade Center. I'm excited. I'm going to go to New York. Next day, I come to work 5:30. 6:30 in the morning, we're having a manager's meeting. The guy in the corner starts screaming, turn on the monitor, turn on the monitor. All the employees, Dave Kirby, my manager, what's going on? We turn on the monitor. Boom, we saw the first plane. Then we saw the second plane flew into Morgan Stanley's headquarters. So imagine you're working at IBM and the IBM headquarters gets shot up. I mean, you're supposed to go to that headquarters. My boss, Dave Kirby, says, everybody go home. Everybody go. We're on the 9th floor in Glendale. We all go home. Okay. Now, everybody remembers where they were at on 9/11 when it happened.
Yeah.
So I go home. I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened today? The next day I go to work. Caroline, everybody was afraid. The old brokers.
Yeah.
They were afraid. They were concerned. They didn't want to pick up the call. Dave kept saying, pick up the calls, guys. Call your clients. No. Call your clients. Call your clients. They're losing money, but call your clients. People are afraid. Okay. He sat us down and he says, hey, new brokers, I want to say something to you guys. We're like, what's that? I highly recommend you guys leave the industry because this industry is going to be very hard the next 3 years. He says, but if you're crazy enough to stick around, it's going to be very good 10 years from now. I sat there, one guy named Shaq, Asian guy. Yeah. He came up and he says, hey, Pat, I'm going to a bank. They're offering me a nice position, nice salary, and you get to use their clients because when you're working for a bank, it's a lot easier to be an advisor because you're just flipping the checking accounts, saving accounts into annuities, mutual funds, all this other stuff. He says, we should go to the bank. I was so tempted. And I said, no, I'm not going. He says, you're going to stick around? He says, listen, it's a bad time as I'm sticking around. So I stuck around. First crisis, 9/11, made me $1 million. Okay. Watch the second crisis. Second crisis was 2008 when the market tanked 38% in a year. Okay. 2008 market tanked 38% a year. I started my insurance company a year later. The second crisis made me, you know, a couple $100 million the following decade. Okay. I'm 41 right now. Today, COVID happens. I'm in LA March 12th for our board meeting. I'm meeting with De La Hoya and all these guys, and all my board, you know, guys are traveling from Connecticut, Greenwich, and they're coming from New York. And while we land in LA at Beverly Hills Hilton, I take my 3 kids because we love Universal Studios. And I take my wife and my 3 kids and our nanny, and we're there. And we're like, listen, we're going to have the board meeting, but let's first take the kids to Universal for the day. No problem. I land, then the news hits. NHL shutting down. NBA shutting down. Adam Silver shutting down. You know, Disney World shutting down. You know, no one's going to these parks. And then all of a sudden the news. My main guys on my board, I'm not coming from Greenwich. Why not? I don't want to get coronavirus. Then my other guy from New York, I'm not coming. Former president of Hartford. I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's canceling. Then I start getting text messages from everybody that's afraid in the company. What are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? I'm like, okay, this is not a time to go to Universal. I said, babe, we're getting on the plane. We're going back to Dallas. So we get on a plane. We come back to Dallas. It's going to be very interesting data I'm about to share with everybody. We come back to Dallas. I'm in LA for less than 24 hours. We come to Dallas. We land. I take my wife and kids home and my nanny home. They go home. I said, babe, you're not going to see me for some time. She says, what do you mean? I said, I got to go figure out what the hell is going on. So I come straight to the office. I'm right here. Okay. You've been in this office before.
Yeah, I've been there.
Come to my office. I lock up everything. I tell everybody to go home. I sit by myself for 14 hours. All I do is research myself on what the last 10 pandemics did and what the consequences were 12 months later. Now watch this.
Wow.
I go look at the pandemics last 10, MERS, SARS, AIDS, every one of them. I have a report. I made a video about it, all of them. So here's what data came out. Very crazy data. This is where my confidence came that everything's going to be all right. Data came back up that out of the last 10 pandemics that we've experienced, I'm not talking like 1800s or 16. I'm talking about from 1920 till today, last 10 pandemics.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times, the economy recovered 6 months later. How crazy is that? Wow. The only one.
6 months later.
6 months later, the economy went back to exactly what it was the day before the pandemic was announced, right? Wow. 6 months later. The only pandemic that the economy was still down 12 months later was AIDS. AIDS was the only one. Everything else recovered. So now watch this. So I'm sitting there looking at this saying, there is a 90% chance that the economy is going to recover in 6 months. Meaning, everybody, all my friends, oh, I took my money out of equities. Oh, I took my money out of equities. Mistake, mistake, mistake. Don't do it. Mistake. Stay tight. Said 90%. No, you don't understand. This is timing. You got to take it out. I have one of my guys that works for me that they've been on the market for a long time. They're worth around 10 million. They took their money out and they just went back into the market too late. They lost $3 million because they went in the market out. Okay. So I stayed put. I told everybody around me, I'm not telling you what to do. Here's what I'm doing with my money. Yeah. This is what I'm buying. Great. Then I took that confidence on what we need to do. I looked at what we needed to do employee-wise. I sent 80% of my employees home. I had a meeting with everybody and I said, guys, tell me any questions you have about pandemic. Ask me any questions, what your concerns are. I'm pregnant. I don't want to work from home. You're going to be working from home. I'm this. My wife is a nurse. She's having to go to work because of coronavirus. And we have a kid and they send us from they can't go to school. What do we do? You work from home. So we address every issue, right? Wow. Okay. Here's our position. When we made that move and I came back, Caroline, we were doing 4,000 to 5,000 policies per month in January, February. This last month, in the month of May, we did 10,968 insurance policies in a month. Our record high was 6,664. We've never done 11,000 policies in a month, shy up. Never. We had our biggest top line revenue, biggest EBITDA, biggest every growth, profit, everything. Why though? After doing a ton of research, it gave me confidence that there's a 90% chance everything's going to be all right. Then we moved. Unfortunately, too often our research is only CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and what people post on Instagram and Facebook. That's our news. And that's a failure.
That's a problem.
That's a big problem because we are allowing things we have no control over to make us feel the way we do. So once I got into that state of confidence, I immediately held a Zoom 3 times a week with every single one of my VPs. We typically only do 1 Zoom a month with our VPs. We did 3 a week. I got them all on to see what they look like. I didn't want to do a conference call. I said to Zoom, I want to see your face. And I could see they were defeated. Half of them were defeated. And I'm like, okay, that guy's defeated. She always wore makeup. I've never seen her without makeup on. She barely has any makeup on. That guy looks scared. And we went on a 2.5-hour Zoom. I said, what's on your mind? And I said, hey, take a look at this. Take a look at this. Take a look at this. Here's what we can do. We can be afraid or we can play offense and do our best. What do you guys want to do? And I'm okay if you guys want to sit on the sideline and be afraid. This is what your CEO is going to be doing. Since March 12th till today, I missed 4 days of work. I've been at the office every day, even though I'm a non-essential business and I'm not supposed to be. Now, some people may say you broke the rules. 4 days I've missed. It's 4 Sundays I missed. I was here. I got closer to my kids the last 12 weeks than I've ever been because they were at the office every day with me. We got a lot of stuff done. So when somebody's watching this right now saying, Pat, what do you think about what I should be doing? Stop giving energy to things you have zero control over and put energy and conserve it and put it into things that's going to give you high return where your dreams become a reality. Yours, your husbands, your wives, your kids, the people around you. So when you wake up and you look at yourself in the mirror, you say, you know what, I'm proud of you. I like the way you lead. That'd be my biggest suggestion to people today.
Patrick, everyone, this is why Patrick is one of my favorite people. One of the most motivating people, but not just motivating. I actually hate that word. One of the most inspiring, but you're realist. You've given practical examples. You've shown us how to plow deep. And I recommend that if you haven't watched any of Valuetainment, you need to watch it because this is how you can really find out who you are as a person. Patrick challenges that in you. I want to thank you for what you said now is outstanding. And I cannot wait to do our podcast where we can dive even deeper and people can have a lot more time to listen to what you've got to say. Just to support what you said there, how use that we've got limited energy. Don't use it on getting your research from the media. Do your research in the proper way. What you did there for that 14 hours, and then you've actually made a video so people can go to Valuetainment and they can see that video on the fact that within 6 months, in 90% of the cases, the economy was back on track. You've got the evidence there, but you did hardcore research, and this is what you took control. You took control. You didn't just let yourself get buffeted by the winds of what was going on. You took control. You drove your energy, and you have succeeded. And that is incredibly good advice for every single one of us. I've just finished a set of clinical trials that I ran over last year, and one of the many things I looked at, and one of the things was that when a person starts getting autonomy, which is the sense of control, and awareness changes inside of us, and suddenly the toxic thoughts of getting all worked up, etc., and or whatever, but the whole range of toxic thoughts is huge, which then causes toxic stress. Those will go down. So with autonomy comes awareness, comes a control of toxic thoughts and toxic stress, leads to empowerment and well-being. It's like literally a pathway to empowerment. So scientifically, I've just been showing what you've just described in such a phenomenal way. So thank you. I'm so excited to have brought you on today, and thank you for your wisdom. And people listen to this 100 times, get Patrick's books, watch him on Valuetainment, and watch out for our podcast, and go check out my podcast interview where Patrick pulled stuff out of me that I didn't even know was there.